Hi, my name's Steve Smith and you're listening to the Obscast.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Welcome to the Obscast, the podcast dedicated to Sherwood Observatory, its members, visitors, and all budding astronomers. It is time, finally, for an update on the Science Discovery Centre, or SDC as we call it. Way back in 2014, Mansfield and Sutton Astronomical Society bought the Victorian Reservoir that sits perfectly situated next to the observatory. And our members, being the go-getting, plan-hatching group they've always been, set their sights on making good use of it. 9-ish years later, and here we are to update you on the latest news regarding that reservoir and its future. Also coming up later, we have a reading of a poem by local poet Margaret Gosley, inspired by the James Webb Telescope. My name is Joe, and I'm joined today by Rob Dawes, Mr. Lookup himself, Steve Smith, and of course we can't talk SDC and planetarium progress without our planetarium planning manager, Steve Wallace. Guys, welcome to another episode of the Obscast.
Good evening, Joe.
Good evening.
So Steve, we're here to talk about the Science Discovery Centre and Planetarium project with some updates. But just for the sake of completeness, could you briefly give a quick, simple overview of what the project is, just in case any members have been living under a rock, or for any of the listening public or new members who may not be aware of our ambitious hopes and dreams?
Well, strangely enough, the project is about building something under a rock. We have a Victorian reservoir next door to the observatory that was built in 1886, and the plan is to convert the reservoir itself into the visitor centre, the Science Discovery Centre. That'll be an exhibition space with multifunctional uses. On top of that, we're going to be having a cafe, some meeting rooms, and the star attraction will be a 60-seat planetarium.
Excellent. So I have a few questions to ask about some of the things in the project, but please can we start with the best stuff, because I have heard some well-founded rumours on BBC, Facebook groups and other places regarding the project's financial status. But please, could you tell us about the latest news on the SDC's levelling up funding?
So it's quite an expensive project, but value for money, we think, in terms of the educational outreach we'll be doing from there. But back in January, I got a phone call one evening. I just got home from the observatory, and that phone call was to tell me that we've been awarded £3.1 million of levelling up money.
That's incredible. So in terms of levelling up funding, where does that come from, and how many projects were we up against in the area?
So we were actually up against projects on a national basis.
Oh,
so
okay.
there was a fund of something like, I think it was £2 billion, and the government, the Department of Levelling Up, received bids sort of during last year, from about summer last year onwards, and then they had some difficult decisions to make because there were lots of good bids up and down the country. So it wasn't a foregone conclusion that we were going to get this money, and I think it's a testament to the work that our volunteers have been doing over many years and the reputation that's created for delivering high quality outreach that got us over the line.
I was about to ask what, in your opinion, may have been the difference between us and other projects that meant we got the funding. Would you say that it's the community we've got here, the volunteers and the effort that goes into everything we've done previously?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, we've got an excellent track record stretching back many years about quality outreach. And it's the reason why the government's been looking to invest is because of the levelling up agenda. In areas where we live, we've got quite low educational outcomes. There's some quite deprived areas, and we showed that we could make a difference. I mean, you just got to look at some of the feedback we get. Only the other day, we got a comment on our Facebook page that was talking about this girl who came here when she was 10, and now she is a professional astronomer, and she puts that down to coming here and getting inspired visiting here. And that's really what it's about, is inspiring people.
Yeah, well, hopefully with this going forwards and the plans we've got, there'll be more stories like that emerging over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we peak out at about 3,000 visitors a year at the moment. With the new facilities, we'll be up more around the 20,000, 21,000 sort of level.
So we've got 3.1 million, did you say?
Yes.
Is there a gap left for us to fill still in terms of funding?
So in terms of where we are now, the total project cost, including VAT and risk allowances and inflation allowances, so the whole budget is 6.35 million. Now of that, we've raised 3.1 million, as we've just been saying, from the Levelling Up Fund. We've got another 2.25 million from the Towns Fund programme, and then about another 50,000 from various other donations. So in total, we've got, what's that, 5.34 million. So we've got £950,000 left to go.
Is there any idea at the moment where that future investment might come from? Could it be from some sort of sponsorship deals with local businesses, or from the public? Is there a current plan for that gap at the moment?
Yeah, we've got basically a 3-leg plan from it. One leg is applying to private sector grant funding bodies and the National Lottery Heritage Fund, because, as I said earlier, this is centred on an underground Victorian reservoir. So some of those applications have already gone in. Some of them are in preparation at the moment. The second leg is a business sponsorship programme, and we've just finalised a prospectus that consists of a list of costed items that businesses in the area could choose to sponsor. So if there's anyone listening who is interested in that, please get in touch and we can send you a copy of the prospectus. And the third leg is a public subscription programme. So that's going to be everything from sponsoring a planetarium seat to a buy a virtual brick scheme.
Oh, is there any kind of idea of how much it might cost someone to sponsor seats or bricks or anything yet?
Yeah, so the seat sponsorship in the planetarium is going to be £250 a seat. The buy a brick scheme we're still working on, but if we look at what other organisations who have adopted a similar funding policy, they can range from sort of £10 or £20 for a bronze brick through to maybe £50 for a silver brick and £100 for a gold brick. We haven't got all the fine detail worked out yet, but it's going to be that sort of value. And then you'll get your name on a brick. We've decided that we're not going to have writing on our real nicely preserved heritage bricks. What we're going to do is have virtual bricks on the planetarium screen. So when you're taking your seat for the planetarium show, you'll be able to readily see all of our sponsors.
Oh, that's a really good idea, actually.
Don't sound so surprised.
Steve, we're talking for an amateur astronomical society, we're talking millions of pounds have been secured in funding, which is a brilliant position to be in. And now we're talking about sponsoring a virtual brick. So the funding has been pretty much complete or getting towards that stage. How is it, because of the uniqueness of this project, do you think what's allowed this to happen with the amount of millions we've been able to source and secure? How did our project compare to others, what you saw in these funding bids? Do you think it was the uniqueness of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's the right idea at the right time. And the combination of what it is, you know, that Victorian reservoir that we own would have been in the way of any other development on that site, but it's just what we want. And it's that combination of looking back to the Victorian engineering heritage and saying, you know, look, this is what the Victorians did for us in terms of water hygiene and water sanitation in the area, and connecting that through to try and to aspire people to follow science, technology, engineering career pathways. So there's like a thread through all of that really makes sense. And I don't think I've met a single person who we've talked to about sponsorship or the general idea of the project who hasn't actually walked into that reservoir, heard about what we're going to do with it, and just gone, wow, we've got to have this.
It's incredible.
So it might have been a whole new story if it was going to be levelled, the ground, and then built from the ground up.
Yeah, and I mean, that would cost more as well, because we're starting with a very substantial structure. And, you know, everyone talks about climate change and carbon impact now. Because we're starting with a big substantial structure that was already there, we're actually saving on what you call embedded carbon. So the amount of carbon it takes to build a building. If you're starting off with an existing one, you're using less carbon than you would do if you're doing a complete new build. So even that ticks the right box.
We've talked about some funding. I've also heard some news about the planning application, because last time we spoke on the Obscast, the planning application, I think it had just been submitted. Can you grace us with some good news on that front as well?
Yeah, sure. So we submitted the planning application last year. So that involved preparing detailed designs, doing highways, studies, having consultations. So a big piece of work, working with our wider team, so the architects, the engineers, to show that the structure was capable of doing this, and our construction partner. So that went in the end of October, beginning of November last year. And just last week, we got the news that the planning application had been signed off by Ashfield District Council Planning Committee. And that's a massive milestone, not only because it's such an important step in getting the project ready, but some of those funders I was talking about earlier said they weren't going to consider our application until we had planning permission, because there's too much risk on them of them potentially giving us money that we then couldn't spend for not getting planning permission. So that's opened the door to some extra sources of funding, getting that planning permission sorted out. So massive milestone for the project.
Where do you see the SDC Planetarium fitting in with the public? Will it be aimed squarely at with an educational angle, or maybe educational entertainment? Will it be an easy fit, or will it be more educational?
So when we put the business case together that we had to do to secure the government funding, because they want to demonstrate value for money and that there's going to be a payback on the project, we had two big areas. One was visitor economy, because we see this as drawing people to the area. And of course, they come to the area, they spend money in the area, which helps development and prosperity of the area. So that was one angle, and we proved that we get a good payback on that for the investment that we've had. But the other angle is very much education. So it's split pretty much down the middle in terms of the education benefit and the tourism benefit. Now, we didn't put a monetary value to the education benefit because it's just hard to do. So the tourism benefit on its own proved the value of the project to the funders. And then we've got this probably bigger educational benefit on top of that. So, local schools will be coming along. As you know, Rob, we've already got a massive interest from the Cubs and Scouts and Brownies, so they're going to be seeing something special when they come here.
I suppose the educational payback will be in the future, wherever we manage to inspire, the youngsters from their career paths, maybe. Yeah,
I mean, what would really make the hair stand up on the back of my neck if in a few years' time we were sitting watching the news and, they're interviewing someone about some new space mission or some new discovery, and that person is asked what got them into that subject in the first place, and they turn around and say, I went to Sherwood Observatory, Planetarium and Science Discovery Centre, and I was hooked from that moment. That would genuinely make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
Well, as you pointed out, Steve, we get some great feedback from people who visit the observatory now. So when we step up with the planetarium, I can only see it getting better.
Yeah, every visit is a chance to make that difference. The more visitors we have, the more chances we have of making that difference.
Let's aim high.
So you've already cleared so many hurdles on the journey to lift this project off the ground, and while there are still things to do and obstacles to navigate, you must feel very excited and very proud in having the project so close to becoming a reality. How does it feel for the project to be at the stage it is right now for you, having spent all this time on it?
I think a mixture of excitement and certainly pride in helping to get it this far. I still can't quite get my head around saying, after so many years of saying it's going to be some nebulous point in the future, to actually talking to people and saying we're going to be on site building it this year in a few months' time. So that's just great, but also some nervousness, because as I was saying, we've not got all of the money yet, and even though everybody tells us that with 85% of the funding in our pockets we'll get the other 15%, I don't think I'll truly sleep comfortably until we've got that extra funding secured.
With the project going forward, what is the current projection or current date to start breaking ground and getting builders in and work to be starting?
So the program that we have at the moment is we can start on site in August this year, so not very far off really. We think it's about a 65-week construction program, which would put the grand opening in November 2024. So really not very far away at all.
Yeah. some sort of ceremony might be in order.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were just talking the other night, actually, and one of the things we should do during construction is bury a time capsule to mark the start of this project, and maybe get some schools involved in that, and get the kids to predict what they think the world will be like in 50 or 100 years' time.
Yeah, that'd be good. I know there's actually a time capsule buried under the telescope, isn't there, Rob? We covered that in
Apparently so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in the founding members
Yes, we
podcast.
did. Yeah. So what so far do you think has been your biggest challenge since the journey began to get this incredible building started?
God, that is a hard question. Thanks for that, Joe. It's I don't know. There's been so many. I think the big things, the make or break type things, where we were talking about the levelling up funding or the Towns Fund money. That 3.1 million pounds from the levelling up fund. If that phone call had said you haven't got that rather than you have got it, I'm not sure we could have filled that gap, or certainly we couldn't have filled that gap quickly enough to start building it this year.
So would that phone call also maybe be the high point?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I got it. I'd been here. It was a Wednesday night. I'd been at the observatory Wednesday evening. There was a rumour going around that the announcements were about to be made. Just as I walked in the door when I got home, I got the phone call. So what was that? That was getting on 10 o'clock at night, something like that. I mean, after that call, the chances of me sleeping that night were just absolute zero.
Yeah. If you imagine it's 6 months after opening day, and it's a triumph, the centre's open and running like clockwork, and that child's come up to you and said, "Thank you, Mr. Wallace," and they announced they're off to become that professional astronomer. Your work with it is done. How do you think you'll feel sort of in that moment when the centre's actually open and running and you're in it?
I think it would be a great feeling, but I think I would go back to what I was saying before. I mean, what we'll have done is delivered a building. It's what the people do in that building and what our volunteers do to inspire those people that come through the door that really matters, not the bricks and mortar.
Actually, building it might have been the easy part. It's
Don't say that, Rob.
I believe you're right. It's what happens inside on that. You can have all the nice, great things around you. It's who's there delivering. Be key.
We've got such a good volunteer group here, though, that it's amazing how the place runs as it is now. And I can imagine when they've got the planetarium to work in, they're going to be there all the time, doing all sorts of work that they can in their own time as well, which is great.
Yeah, and we'll have hired some staff as well, because we can't just run that on volunteer effort. It's too big an entity. And I think one of the key things to do in this project is making sure we pick the right members of staff that sort of live and breathe what we live and breathe, so that they add to us rather than making it harder. And we're already saying our membership is growing in anticipation of what we're doing. And on top of that, we're talking to Nottingham Trent University, who are keen to send students here so that they can learn more about doing public communication and science. So, we've got extra effort from outside. We've got West Notts College saying, can their catering students help out in our cafe so they get public facing experience rather than just learning about stuff like that in a classroom. So, that goes back to what it's really about. It's a community project that helps people in the community, get work experience and better jobs.
It is, Steve. It's a community project, and it'll feel like the community's coming to our doorstep here at MSAS. So the Discovery Centre's up and running, doing great. How do you feel, or how do you see our membership fitting in with its great shiny new neighbour? And we've got our clubhouse, so to speak, here. How do you feel they're going to fit in? Will they feel part of it? This is a separate entity, that sort of thing.
We've been very keen throughout this whole design process to not lose that important aspect of what it feels like to be a member here. And that's been core to our organisational design. We've got more work to do with that in terms of consulting with the members to make sure we get that just right. But, the members are what makes this place live and breathe. So they're the most important thing. Just like I said, we're bricks and mortar and nothing else without the members. So they're absolutely integral to this. And, you know, they've got to feel like they're at home here and they can come and use this place. And, you know, as you were saying, Joe, there are members who can't wait to get their hands on the huge computing power we'll have in the planetarium and use that to create shows as part of their hobby, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I know you get shows in as a package sometimes, don't you, with the Planetarium software? But I can't wait because there's so many amazing minds here that know what they're doing with that sort of thing that it's just going to blow us away with the things they come up with in their own time to share with the public and other members as well. So
yeah, and that's right, and we'll become part of a planetarium community where other like-minded people are creating planetarium shows in their planetarium. And once you're part of that community, you can swap shows with each other. So you're always keeping it fresh.
Would there be a meeting for the membership coming up soon, just to allay any fears, or like I say, give them the latest updates and ideas of where we're going, how they can be involved, that sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the designs are still evolving as you know, we sort of work out wrinkles in it and get into some of the detailed designs, like, you know, where do we put the light fittings and all sorts of stuff like that. Our architects just finished creating a 3D walkthrough model where, you know, it's almost like a computer game. You can walk through the new sensor and self-guide yourself through it to see what it looks like. So I'm just waiting for them to finish that off, and then we'll definitely set up a Wednesday night members meeting and we can walk the members through that and, you know, suggest any design changes where we've still got the option before they're locked down.
So the walkthrough will be available for the membership, yes?
Yeah, it's a link to a software package, so we'd have to look at, you know, what you have to have on your computer to do it, but we can certainly demonstrate it at the observatory and let people walk through it. We'll need to look into whether it's something we can distribute widely and give them all access to the package, because it's obviously something our architects built on a package that they have, so we need to look at that. But yeah, absolutely happy to show any member through the walkthrough, you know, on my laptop or on the screen here in the observatory.
excellent.
Steve, when the project is completed, will there be a little part of you what will feel sad that the roller coaster has stopped?
Yes, it will, but, you know, I'll find another field somewhere else and I'll build another one.
I was thinking it's going to leave a massive gap in your schedule.
It means we're going to see more of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's always a downside to every project, Rob.
They didn't want to mention it before, but we have found another reservoir just on the other side of these trees.
Do you think you'll do some presentations and maybe lectures in the planetarium? You've got your degree in astronomy now. It could come in very useful for educational purposes.
Oh, I'll be in there. I mean, the reason why I joined here in the first place, as strange as it may sound, I didn't join an astronomy society to build a planetarium out of Victorian reservoir. That was not on my mind when I joined this society. Yeah, I enjoy the outreach bit, you know, and that's what I want to do. So yeah, I'll be in there with everybody else, pushing people out of the way so I can do planetarium shows for people.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Just to finish off, Steve, everyone who comes here saying they're passionate about astronomy, is there anything what stands out in your mind over the last few years or further, what really floats your boat, what you've seen done in astronomy?
I think partially because we've been involved in a very small way. I think some of the stuff that the Webb telescopes come up with, I mean, you can't fail to be amazed by what's out there when you see the Webb telescope images. You know, I mean, we've done presentations where, first of all, we've put up images from the Hubble telescope where everybody used to go, wow, and then you overlay the same area of sky but taken by the Webb telescope, and you think, the Hubble telescope image was rubbish. Why did we ever get excited about that? And, you know, there's so much science in the Webb telescope. It's literally changing the textbooks as we sit here.
Well, once the planetarium is built, we'll be flying through these nebulas and things like that, won't we? Literally.
Absolutely.
We'll be up there. Fantastic.
Oh, do you have any final thoughts or anything to add?
No, I think we've covered it. Just watch this space, look out for updates, and it will be open before you know it.
Well, thank you very much, Steve, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate
you.
your time.
Coming up next, Steve Smith is going to give us a heads up on what to look out for in the night sky in the next month. And Margaret Gosley is going to share her poem inspired by JWST with all of us here on the Obscast. Welcome back. You are listening to the Obscast, and Steve Smith is about to dazzle us with descriptions of April's night sky offering. So, Steve, what have you pulled out of the Cosmic Selection box for us this month?
Well, thank you, Joe. Hi there, everybody. I'll just explain a couple of things first. I started doing the Looking Up articles to help members relatively new to observing aware of all the hundreds of objects available for us to view for each month of the year. If you have a list of stuff to see, then you can be ready for the next observing session that presents itself. There's always plenty to see. As usual, most of the stuff I am about to mention today will be in my Looking Up articles in March's and April's EH magazine. They go into a lot more detail. Right now, I'm just trying to whet your appetite to go outside and see some exciting objects. So, what are this month's highlights? Mercury is putting on its best show of the year during April. Normally it lies close to the sun's glare, but this month, viewed from our northern latitudes in Britain, it appears just about as far as it can get from the sun, giving us a real chance to observe it soon after sunset. Its phases range from 77% gibbous on the 1st of April to 21% crescent by the 17th of April. So lots of chance to see that. I have to mention the obvious warning. Mercury is never too far from the sun, so please wait until the sun is safely below the horizon before you observe Mercury, or Venus for that matter, via optical instruments. Mentioning Venus, Venus is shining brilliantly in the evenings after sunset. Also up there, favourable position, M51, the wonderful Whirlpool galaxy, which is just below the Plough. It's very nicely placed. We have a meteor shower this month. Lyrid's meteor shower makes a welcome moon-free return, peaking on the nights of the 22nd and 23rd of April. The meteors are generally swift and brilliant. We can hope to see in the region of 10 to 20 metres an hour streaking across our skies. It also has some popular neighbours in that area, namely the Coathanger asterism, the Dumbbell Nebula, the M13 Globular Cluster, and M57 Ring Nebula. They're all in the same area as the point from where the meteor shower starts. Ursa Major, or the Plough as we know it, is still in prime position this month, allowing us the best chance to view some great objects like popular targets M101, the Face-on Pinwheel Galaxy, and M97, the Owl Nebula, just to name a few. The multitudinous spring galaxies in Coma Berenices, Leo and Virgo are also very well placed. This area of sky is teeming with fuzzy smudges of light from numerous galaxies. Simply point your scope anywhere in this vicinity and you should get some good results. More on this in a moment. I covered the fabulous Leo triplet, which consists of M65, M66 and NGC 3638 in last month's Looking Up. However, this triplet is well worth a look at every opportunity. It is easy to find, so it is often makes a good starting point when having an observing session. Another fabulous and favourite Leo target, especially of mine, is a second triplet of galaxies. It's namely consisting of M95, M96 and M105. They also lie under Leo's belly, a few degrees west of the Leo triplet. Now the true field of view is quite large at around 1.75 degrees if you want to see all three galaxies at once. This may be beyond your setup's combination of scope and eyepieces, but you can easily fit M95 and M96 into a 1 degree true field of view. Soak up the view and then nudge over to M105. Furthermore, right next to M105 you may notice another slightly fainter edge-on smudge of a galaxy called NGC 3371. I personally spotted NGC 3371 quite by accident a few years ago while I was admiring M105. It just popped into view. It was a wow moment for me. I did later look it up and find out what it was called. Right, now for the main event for me. The sky in and around Leo is teeming with spring galaxies. It's that time of year, it's nearly spring. Particularly in Virgo and Coma Berenices area. Where are they? They lie in the area between Denibola, star Denibola in Leo, and star Vindimiatrix in Virgo. Right, it's slap in the middle between those two stars, and they also spread up into Coma Berenices. There are about 150 galaxies in this area that we can see. There are actually a couple of thousand galaxies that we can't see there as well. They're all part of the Virgo cluster. There are maps in the Looking Up articles showing you exactly where to point your scope. If you do point your scope over there, you should be able to see faint smudges of galaxies wherever you point it in this area of sky. And you can often see 2, 3 or even 4 galaxies in this same field of view. That's a lot of stars. Just think about it. Markarian's chain is an interesting curved string of galaxies bang in the middle of the Virgo spring galaxies. I always look forward to seeing this little string of galaxies. This curved string is a great challenge to observe, especially if you want to see loads of galaxies in one night. I have visited Markarian's chain on several occasions, and you can easily count over 30 galaxies in one night session if you visit this rich area of sky. I mentioned in the April EH in detail how I tend to observe Markarian's chain, but if you take up the rewarding challenge, I suggest you start at the southern end of the chain at M84 and M86, then galaxy hop northwards and westwards. Okay, in this rich area of sky, there are about 16 Messier objects as well, one of which is M87, a giant elliptical, and is Virgo's largest galaxy. Interestingly, it has an enormous jet that is visible, sticking out from the core of the galaxy, and that jet is around 4,100 light years long. M87, this is interesting, is also known for its huge number of globular clusters. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, has around 150 globs, but M87 has more than 12,000. Also in this bunch is Messier 104. It's the famous and stunning Sombrero galaxy. It is a marvellous 8.3 plus 8.3 magnitude spiral galaxy just inside the southern boundary of Virgo. It is almost edge-on and is well known for the dark dust lane running through its length. Wait for a transparent and moonless night to see its magnificent dust lane. A 6-inch scope should resolve it. Elsewhere, we have Messier 3, which is one of the most beautiful and easily seen globular clusters in the northern sky. Messier 53 and its close but fainter neighbour NGC 5053, they are also in this area. M53 is one of the more distant globulars, lying at 60,000 light years from the galactic centre. The faint and loose globular NGC 5053 lies only 1 degree to the east of it. And that's it really. There's more detail in the EH, in the Looking Up articles, and more objects in there for you to ponder on seeing. So that's my, in a nutshell,
overview.
Yeah, that's it. Right.
Thank you
If
very
you've guys got any questions, then please ask.
It seems there's so much to see in April, the month of April. We're going to need 2 months to get it all done.
Yeah, it's an exciting time of year, and we've still got the dark nights in which we can see them. The summer months are coming with the summer triangle and everything that brings, and some wonderful objects then. But with it as well, we also get light nights. We get very little viewing hours.
We are going to end this episode with a poem by Margaret Gosley. So before that, I just want to remind you we have our first open solar day of the year on the 22nd of April from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And later in the month, we will once again have a guest speaker here in the observatory for our members, so keep an eye out for an announcement on that. If you want to attend that, you will need to become a card-carrying member of MSAS, and Rob is about to tell you how much that will cost you.
£48 a year. Less than £1 a week.
I love a catchphrase. And now I would like to welcome Margaret to the Obscast. Thank you so much for coming in tonight to share this with us. I hear you were here on the Saturday just gone before the opening evening kicked off. Can I just ask what your first impression was of the observatory?
I was very excited, overexcited really. I think I've passed it many times, on the road, and thought, oh, that looks so sad because it looked neglected. Because, it's been there a long while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And then when I came in and I heard all about, and I saw it for real, and then I also heard about what was going to happen, and then Brendan took me down to the underground reservoir, and I was just blown away. And I got home very overexcited.
Excellent. And while you were down there, could you imagine
Oh,
the future?
Oh,
of what it's going to be?
completely. And also, one of the guys had a tripod up outside he said, have a look at the moon. And I just wanted to cry.
Was that through the binoculars?
Yes, it was so beautiful. So very beautiful.
And today you have a poem you've written that you're going to read for us.
Yes.
Can I ask what the title of your poem is and what inspired you to write it?
Well, it's just called the James Webb Space Telescope. It's an homage to the telescope, because I do like technology, and I've written poems about robots and all sorts of things. But on Christmas Day, the day it was launched, which is 2021, isn't it? Christmas Day. We heard about the launch, and I was so excited. And this line came into my head, which is what happens with me with poetry. When the line was, because when they said it was going to track the light of the earliest star, this line came into my head: time travels on a beam of light. And I wrote it on a piece of paper, and it sat on my kitchen table, and I kept adding bits to it and shuffling, which is what you do. And actually, the day I finished it, which is purely coincidental, was the day when the first pictures came back from the telescope, which was about 5.5, 6 months later. So, and yeah, it was good timing, yeah.
It was all meant to be, Margaret.
It was all meant to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming in, and when you're ready, we'd love to
Right,
hear
so
it.
the poem, yes, it's called The James Webb Space Telescope. Travelling with folded wings beyond the vault of human knowledge, the once was, the might be of our history, like shepherds following a star, looking for that place where the first match was struck. A single hand, spontaneous combustion, or chemistry, who knows? Only that time travels on a beam of light, scattering minutes and millenniums, a Milky Way of memories, galaxies of dreams, fantasies of far-flung futures, stars signifying mythic forces, possible predictors of the way we are. The butterfly spreads its wings and travels on, dodging the crash and burn of the sun bursting over the hill. Time expands into dark space, losing its human measure, pulling the past into tomorrow, the DNA of our present, dreaming us towards an imagined sci-fi future that waits behind us and above us in the dark of our unknowing.
Wow.
Well done, Margaret.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, lovely. I have
very
read
good.
it at home, but you say it so well.
Well, I hang out with quite a few poets, and we do gigs in pubs and things,
Ah.
so,
I was going to ask if
yeah.
it didn't sound like your first poem.
No.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Perfect, Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you.